Greetings, my minions. It is Esper.
It's that time of year again, when the nights grow long and the air begins to take on a chill. Soon the festival of haunting shall be upon us. Skeletons will dance in the graveyard. Shadows will creep up behind you, and you will hear someone call your voice. But when you look, no one will be there. Dungeons & Dragons features a wide variety of both monsters and play styles, some of which are quite horror-infused. So join me, if you will, on a brief tour of some of fantasy gaming's best dark creatures.
Ghoul.
Ghouls are lanky, sneaky undead with gray skin, sunken eye sockets, and elongated teeth and claws. They creep out from their crypts with a ravenous hunger for the flesh of the living that they once were. They will stop at nothing to satiate their cannibalistic cravings, even going so far as to dig up graves and feast upon corpses if they get desperate enough. Those that wish to flee from one of these monsters had better do so with utmost haste, for the ghouls' tainted attacks are known to paralyze their victims. Unlike zombies, who are uncoordinated, mindless meat fodder, ghouls possess a sinister agility and retain a semblance of mental faculty, though their personalities are twisted and heartless. Wraith. A wraith appears as a tattered cloak of shadows, with two burning red eyes that seem to bore into your mind. Their existence is one of torment, for they feel nothing but loss and hatred. They have been stripped of all joy, all warmth, and all kindness. They are driven by this madness, and seek to slay the living whom they hold in utter contempt. Wraiths once were people, but their bodies have long since perished, leaving behind only this, a shadow of the soul they once were, a mockery of what they once had. Wraiths are known to have the ability to float through solid objects and quickly glide through shadows. Their touch drains the living of strength and energy, and should they slay you, you too will become a wraith.
Bone Claw.
The Bone Claw is constructed from an assortment of dead bodies and animated with a powerful necromantic ritual. It is a large monster, standing tall, with long arms and long fingers. Each finger bears a spear-like claw, which can extend and retract. In an instant, the bone claw can protrude its claws out to a length of about 10 feet, skewering its target. A bone claw is created to hunt down and slay its master's enemies, and to guard its master's lair. The dark knowledge required to create one is closely guarded by a powerful sex of necromancers.
Bandar Hob.
On the darkest of nights, when no moon shines, the veil is thin. The divide between this world and the plane of shadows is not nearly as distinct. During these gloomy times, from an unknown lair come the Bandar Hobs, plodding on through the dim in search of victims. It is said that their favorite treat is little children, in particular, children that have been especially bad. If you happen to be one such target, a Bandar Hob will sneak into your house through a window or a chimney, or maybe up through the basement. It will find you in your sleep, wrap its great tongue around you, open its immense mouth, and swallow you into its giant stomach. Legends tell that Bandar Hobs usually don't eat their victims, however. They take them back to the realm of darkness, where they will serve as slaves to an unknown master until the day comes that they themselves transform into Bandar Hobs.
Devourer.
Every once in a while, someone is born with a powerful yet corrupted soul. Such people often go on to become mass murderers. Some are stalkers who prowl the city alleyways at night. Others are conquering warlords who delight in beheading or impaling those that they defeat. When these cruel killers die, they cannot be laid to rest for long. Eventually, their soul returns, bringing with it foul flesh and dark matter, which transform the killer's corpses into a monstrous undead being known as a devourer. As the devourer once harvested flesh in life, it now harvests souls in undeath. It can trap the spirit of a person within its hollowed torso. The victim's soul is trapped inside a cage of ribs until the devourer chooses to consume it, at which point the poor soul withers away to an unknown end.
Foul spawn.
Everyone knows that underground exploration has a number of dangers. One little-known threat are the foul spawn. No one knows their true origin. Some say they once were people. Others say they sprang from the nightmares of a mad god. Whatever the case, these warped beings are corrupted thoroughly by the far realm. Their bodies are twisted and alien, and their minds are tainted with madness. What fell rituals they perform in the great lightless depths of the Underdark are better left a mystery. Should you come across a foul spawn while doing some subterranean adventuring, either run or be ready to fight against their wide array of strange attacks. Some strike out with multi-jointed limbs. Some speak psychic whispers which worm through your mind, while others can tear at the fabric of reality itself. Pod Demon. These grotesque monstrosities are most striking. Their disgusting bodies bubble with acids and poisons. They generate spawn out of their backs, which scramble about. Pod demons are even known to fling their spawn at foes, causing caustic bursts upon impact. Possibly their most unusual trait is the pod demon's ability to transfer its essence to one of its podlings. In a moment, a pod demon can literally erupt from one of its miniature selves, causing its original self to shrink down to a tiny spawn.
Cadaver Collector.
These grisly constructs are similar to golems. Imagine this scene. You happen upon a battlefield after the fighting has ceased. The dead and dying are strewn everywhere. From the misty haze emerges a 12-foot-tall metal construct, wading through the fallen and impaling bodies upon its spikes. It is said that cadaver collectors are constructed by their masters to collect worthy specimens and bring them home for fell intents such as necromancy or experimentation. As if their punishing slams and skewering spikes weren't enough, these ironclad hulks are also built to emit paralyzing vapors, ensuring the most choice victims can't get away.
Strahd von Zarovich.
Count Strahd is the iconic figure of the Ravenloft campaign setting for Dungeons & Dragons. This setting explores gothic and horror themes, and is great to drum up around the Halloween season. Strahd's backstory is one of war, strife, jealousy, corruption, and eventually tragedy. He dwells within the cold walls of his massive castle, which looms as a shadow over the land of Barovia. His dark secret is not much a secret nowadays. You guessed it, he is a vampire lord. He's got all the awesome traits of the archetypal vampire master. A staggering unarmed strike, a dominating gaze, the ability to turn into a wolf or a swarm of bats, and of course, a blood-draining bite. He is vulnerable to light, but it doesn't reduce him to ashes. In fact, killing him is definitely not as easy as reducing his hit points to 0. Strahd is the Count Dracula of D&D, and in his own way, he is a legend. For the finale of this list of unsettling and ghastly monsters, I'm going to go with a double whammy. 2 gods. 2 that are particularly dreadful and dark.
Taurog.
Taurog is the god of imprisonment, torture, and the dark places below the surface of the world. Like all gods, he fought against the primordials during the Dawn War. However, he was subjected to a legendary curse which not only trapped him in the Underdark, but prevents his wounds from the war from ever healing. Eternally bound, he crawls through the tunnels and caverns of the deeps, his mangled form thrashing about in torment. His blood falls to the ground, forming worm-like minions, and he delights in capturing victims to drag back to one of his multitude of torture dens. Taurog is a stark mixture of power and terror, yet vulnerability and tragedy. He is not a being that you ever want to come into contact with, yet he was instrumental in constructing prisons that contain many of the primordials which threatened to destroy the world. Vecna. Vecna is the god of secrets, dark knowledge, and undeath. He is the patron of necromancers, worshipped by evil cultists, and prayed to by scholars who seek out ancient and forbidden lore. He is also known as the Maimed God, because he was betrayed by one of his most trusted lieutenants who severed his left hand and eye. In this respect, he has a slight amount of similarity to Taurog, but that's about as far as the similarities go. The hand and eye of Vecna have since become powerful divine artifacts. They are said to wander the world in search of a proper host to which they can affix themselves to. Will this host become a champion of Vecna, or just a puppet through which he can act and spy? An interesting trait of Vecna is that he is said to have no singular domain in which he dwells. Unlike the other gods, he supposedly travels the planes in secret forms, collecting secrets and observing far-reaching events. It is speculated that he has plans to take over the world, and spends much of his time sowing seeds and fueling the mad cults which constantly search for his hand and eye, as well as the sword that cut them out. The great thing about Vecna is that his eerie motives and agendas are so hard to know. He embodies the very heart and soul of horror, that there is something out there, in the dark, and you don't know what it is, or what it is doing, but it is watching you. So I hope you've enjoyed this review of Creeps and Fiends. I sure have a lot of fun introducing these elements into my gaming sessions. I invite you to try it out sometime. Just like with horror movies, you can have a lot of fun and a lot of interesting nights by letting your guard down and allowing yourself to get a little spooked. This really gives you the potential for some memorable moments. And that's one of the main things that continually draws me to this kind of gaming. The memories it creates. Memories of exploring haunted crypts and fighting off packs of ghouls, of clerics holding out holy symbols to turn away wraiths and vampires, of delving deep underground and into misbegotten ruins and stumbling upon some twisted horror that should have never been. These are memories of me and my friends, with our weapons, our skills, and our wits against the armies of darkness. These are memories to last a lifetime.